another story that I've been requested to read, and this one is called, you can't see too well because of the way it's printed, but it's called The Princess Who Never Laughed. Once again, you can see this book's a little worn out because I believe I read it a lot or had it read to me a lot when I was young. It was written in 1961 by someone named Marcia Grunewald. And the picture as it starts shows a sad princess. There she is. And this is a funny picture, but you'll see about that one later, okay? Because right now it wouldn't make any sense. So let's read the story and find out. Once upon a time in a castle, that's a good way to start, isn't it? Once upon a time in a castle made of marble and moonstone, there lived a lovely princess. And she's sitting on a throne there. I imagine her parents, the king and queen, have a throne, but she has her own throne. There's a servant bringing her something to drink. There's another servant working in the beautiful palace, castle. Well, she was the most beautiful princess who ever lived, and the gentlest, and the kindest, and the wisest too. Let's look at the pictures that show us that. Here is they're showing how beautiful she is at the top, and they're showing how gentle she is as she's playing with some kitties and some yarn. Whoops, sorry, there you go. And here they're showing how kind she is, because there's a poor little girl who can't walk very well. Looks like one of her legs has been injured or isn't working right, and she's giving her a present and showing concern and compassion for her. And then they say she's the wisest because here she is. She's studying in a book. Back then they didn't have electricity. She lived so long ago. She's reading by candlelight. But apparently she enjoys reading books. Yet for all her goodness, she brought sorrow to those who loved her best. For this beautiful, gentle princess had never, ever smiled. That's hard to imagine, isn't it? We smile probably quite a bit. To think she never, ever smiled is hard to even think about. Well, she didn't smile, not as a baby when her royal mother brought her a new toy, and I'll show you in a second, and not as a child when her royal father took her to the circus. So here her royal mother and her nursery helper, nanny, whoever that one is that helped out, she got a lovely present from her mother. A little toy horse, it looks like. And she's crying. And her dad took her to the circus, thought that'd be so fun for her. He's having a great old time. And a monkey even comes up to visit her. Wouldn't you like that? What is she doing? No smile, no laugh, no happiness. And she wasn't happy as a grown-up princess either. When suitors, those are men that wanted to date her or court her and wanted to marry her, they would come from far and wide all over the kingdom and ask her for her hand in marriage. That means they're asking to marry her. It's just a way of speaking. There they are, and there she is saying, "Oh, I can't smile. I can't laugh." She's very serious. In fact, it even looks like she's crying. Well, one day the king came out on his balcony and he made a speech. "Hear ye, hear ye. It is the greatest wish of my heart that the princess be happy," he said. I better read that with a more kingly voice. "It is the greatest wish of my heart that the princess be happy," he said. "I shall give her hand in marriage and half my kingdom to the man who can teach her eyes to sparkle and her lips to smile." He was very concerned about his daughter, and there he is making a royal order. He probably put that little scepter he's holding there, and made a little bump on the table with it, and said, "If there's a man out there that can make my daughter smile, and her eyes sparkle with that smile, then I'm going to let him marry my daughter. And half of what I own, half of my kingdom, will be his." Well, you can imagine there were a lot of young men that thought she's pretty and smart and gentle and kind like we saw, and they really liked the idea of having a chance to marry her and have part of the kingdom. And some of them were more, let's say, nice or wanted more than others, I suppose you could say. In other words, some were good, some were bad, some were just funny, whatever. But here's what happened. From that day forward, hundreds of suitors, that means young men, came from all over the world, not just her kingdom where she lived. One came dressed as a clown and jumped head first into a bucket of water. He looked so funny. Yikes, that looks extremely dangerous to me. Of course, that's me. But look at that. He jumped head first and apparently didn't get hurt. And look at all the other ladies in the court and a man over there. They're like, they're doubled over with laughter. What does the princess do? No laughter, right? And you know what she said? Poor fellow, said the princess, with tears in her eyes while everybody else laughed. She felt sorry for him because she thought maybe he got hurt. I have to admit, I would be a little worried too. But the point is that one after the other came and no one could seem to make her laugh. Let's see some more people that came, some more men. Another rode up to the castle on a polar bear's back, which is quite unusual. Polar bears are wild animals and they live up in the north where the cold weather is. And to ride one in, well, some people laughed, but not the princess. A third man came and pulled 13 rabbits out of his hat. Wow, he was a magician, wasn't he? But didn't make her laugh. Who did it make laugh? Actually, I think this is the other one. Another man, a fourth one came and told such a silly story that the king nearly burst with laughter. It looks like he's laughing at the rabbits, but apparently there's a man they're not showing that told a silly, like a joke or story that was like, oh my goodness, the king couldn't stop laughing. It was so funny. And the princess still didn't laugh. Boo-hoo. She just wouldn't laugh. For many days they came, and the princess talked to all of them very sweetly and solemnly, politely. And sometimes she even wept, which means cried, to think how she must disappoint them. They'd come all this way to see her. Look at them all lined up there. That's not even all of them. You can't even see them all. And there she is on her throne, and she's kind of sniffing and crying because they're like, here I am, princess. I care about you, and I want to make you happy. She wouldn't smile or laugh. Well, one day a young fellow called Dummling heard of the king's offer. He was only a miller's son, and not particularly handsome, but he started at once for the castle. Now, a miller is usually someone who grinds something. Back in the old days, they would grind up their wheat to make bread. We still grind up wheat, but we don't have a separate building that's just a miller. Things like that are done in factories usually now. But this man, his father was a miller of some sort. He could be a miller for cloth, but very commonly it would be a miller for grain, which was used for baking and bread especially. So here he is. And along the way, here's the man. He meets somebody that's, look at, he's pretty short compared to this man. He's sitting down, and they're about the same height when one's standing and one's sitting. And this little old man has long hair, doesn't he? So he met a little old man with a long beard. How was his beard that was so long? Oh, the little old man said, I am hungry, young sir. Will you give me some bread? Dummling had only a crust of bread. That means a small amount of the end of the bread. And he was saving that for himself, actually, because he knew he'd get hungry on his trip. But he was a good fellow, and he gave the bread to the beggar because he felt sorry for him. And at once, poof, the old man disappeared, and in his place stood a shining golden goose. Oh, look at him. He's like, whoa, what just happened here? Once there was an old man with a super long beard that needed some food, and now I have a golden goose there. And all I did is give him my last scrap of food, my crust of bread. Well, ho ho, laughed Dumpling, not dumpling, but it's almost spelled the same. Here's a fine gift to take to the princess, he thought. He hadn't thought to pick up a gift apparently, and he thought this will be perfect. And he picked up the goose and he went on his way. And he's very happy with his finding. I think he's pretty good looking. I don't know why the book says he's not very handsome. But you know what? The person that's the most handsome is the person that does the right thing and has a good heart. There's an expression that my grandma, your mom's great-grandma taught her. Pretty is as pretty does. That means you're pretty or good looking if you do nice and good things, okay? Well, here he is on his walk. Let me read this first. Soon he met 3 sisters who stared greedily at the golden goose. No sooner had Dumpling passed by than the eldest girl tried to snatch a feather from the bird. And to her astonishment, as she reached, she thought, wow, that goose looks like something else, and I wish I could have it. And she reached out and she touched it. I have a bird here that's a robin. It's not a goose, but it has a wing. And pretend there's feathers in that wing. There's feathers back here too. And she reached out to touch it. Oh! Her hand stuck. She stuck so fast that no matter how she tried, she could not let go. Well, here's the man walking down the road with the bird, and so where's she going to go if she's stuck to the bird? She's going to go with him. And that's what happened. Look. She reached out to touch the bird and see if she could see what it felt like and maybe even grab it from him, and she got stuck. And then looks what happens. I think it's her sister. No, it just says, yes, it is her sister. Stop, cried the second girl and seized her sister's arm. And she was stuck to her sister's arm. So she's reaching out saying, wait, sister. Oh. She can't get her arm off, her hand off, but you know what I mean. So here we have our little friends. The man with the golden goose, the sister stuck to the feather, the sister stuck to the arm. Kind of a weird thing to see, isn't it? And what was it that made them stick? I don't know, but this goose was magical. A moment later, the third sister had joined the chain to stop them, and her hand got stuck to the second one's hand, and they were being dragged helter-skelter down the road toward the king's castle. After a bit, they met a parson. That's like a pastor or minister. And he said, stop at once, you naughty girls. And he grasped the younger sister's sleeve. And guess what happened? You guessed it. Here's the goose, first sister, second sister, third sister. Here's the minister or parson grabbing her sleeve. Boop, he stuck to. And now he too was carried along with the other girls, with the other people I should say, but they were girls. And by the time that Dumpling reached the castle to see the princess, there were, besides the 3 sisters and the parson, there was a butcher, a baker, a farmer, and the farmer's wife, all hopping and tumbling along beside the golden goose, and they were the strangest looking crew in the world. Now, he never intended this to happen, but he's thinking this is kind of fun and funny. I don't know if these guys thought it was funny, but look at that. They're just getting pulled along. This farmer's wife is about to fly there. She's getting pulled so hard. And they can't let go. Well, it happened that the princess was on the balcony enjoying the sun and crying contentedly as Dumpling came up the road. So there she is. She's up in the top of the castle, and she's looking over the top like a parapet, that would be called, and she's looking down, and what does she see? All these people attached to each other, and a man in the lead holding a golden goose. She looked once. She dried her tears. Am I seeing straight? My eyes blurry? And then she looked again. And her eyes started to sparkle. And her lips started to curl. And did she do? She smiled and then laughed. And she looked once more, and the corners of her mouth turned up, and then the princess laughed. And it was a good laugh. You know, when you're just so happy, you just can't help it, right? She laughed. The boy has made her laugh, shouted the king. And he jumped up and down in delight. He was so excited. The princess laughed, shouted all the courtiers. Look at everybody's delighted, and here's the king. He's so happy, he's jumping up and down by his wife. And the princess said, I laughed, exclaimed the princess. And she did it again, just to be sure. Within a very few days, the king kept his promise. Remember what he promised the young man that could make her laugh? Yep. And a great wedding was held in the castle. And that man, Dumpling, married the princess. So he became a prince. Music filled the air and bells pealed. Ding, 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 ding. They look happy. Bells pealed across the land, and even the birds joined in a wedding song. But the loveliest sound of all, so everyone said, was the bright and joyous laughter of their happy princess. And there they are, the king, the princess, and her new husband, Dumpling the prince. And here's just a funny picture of everybody chasing after. That's probably after the wedding. Everybody's trying to get that golden goose and see what it can do besides what it already did. And that's the end of the story. It's kind of funny and kind of silly and kind of hard to imagine. But it's the story, the princess who never laughed. That's right, until the end of the book. Thank you. See you later.